Again, verse 10 is a shred. We actually have that portion of the book of Ezra written perhaps by Ezra himself with the name Osnapar, if I'm pronouncing it right, Osnapar, on it in the Hebrew language. So there is a document that says that the book of Ezra actually existed, and that we have on a shred of clay Ezra chapter 4 and verse 10. Wood and wax apparently were widely used primarily by the Greeks and Romans, not so much by the Hebrew people, but by the Greeks and Romans. Public notices were published on wood that was covered with wax, and they would write in the wax, and then they would melt it and reuse it. It was a recycled surface, if you will. I'm not going to go back to, well, yes, let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 37 for a moment. Ezekiel chapter 37. And something I found interesting was most historians believe that the sign that was hung over the head of Jesus on the cross, "This is the King of the Jews," most historians believe that that sign was probably written in wax on wood. So Ezekiel chapter 37, I want to go here for a moment. Ezekiel 37, verse 16. Ezekiel chapter 37 and verse 16. Ezekiel says, "Son of man, take a stick and write on it for Judah and the people of Israel associated with him. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and from the house of Israel associated with him." Pause there. Ezekiel is commanded by God to take a stick, a circular stick, and write on it. Chances are this stick, this wood, may have been a stick, or it may have been a flat piece of wood. Does anybody in here remember what a Rolodex looks like? We used to have Rolodexes before we had cell phones that contained all of our contacts. Apparently there was a system in which wood was used in a Rolodex form. Wax was covered the wood, and writings were written in the wax, and that was a Rolodex type of book. So whether this is a stick or whether it is simply a piece of wood that Ezekiel is commanded to write on, I do not know. But nevertheless, we have wood as a writing medium. Next, metal was used. Metal also was used as a writing medium. One of interest that I think is most interesting that we have today is a passage we have on, I believe it's on gold. It's either on gold or silver, and I can't remember which. Forgive me for that. We have a metal plaque that dates to 600 BC. The passage from Numbers chapter 6, verse 24 through 26. Let's go back there. I'll read that passage to you. It is a beautiful passage. Numbers chapter 6. Verse 24. "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. We have that written in pages we know of as the Bible. But around 600 BC, someone felt the need to put that on a piece of metal, a precious metal. And so we have preserved for us one of the oldest known Bible passages. This predates some of the other writings I mentioned in clay and wood that we have. This is the oldest known actual scripture passage that we have in existence. I'm going to bring this kind of to a close. I know this is a lot of history. There's a lot of thoughts that go into this. But writing was well advanced before Moses was commanded to write the first 5 books of the Bible. Jesus tells us that Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. We have no evidence necessarily of that, but we believe, based on other outside passages from those first 5 books, that Moses was the author of Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I'm sorry, I left out Leviticus. We understand those to be written by Moses. That has been widely disputed. And the argument that is made is that writing did not exist when Moses lived around 1500 BC. I think we've looked at evidence that says that writing was well over 1500 years old. Writing was well established when Moses walked the earth. And so I believe the Bible is accurate. I believe that Moses is the author of those first 5 books of the Bible. These writings were held as sacred by the Israelite people. The Israelites held them sacred from the time of Moses until the time of Jesus, and they still do today. Israeli people view those writings as sacred, inspired by God, authored by Moses. Jesus himself used those teachings. Lord willing, next week, I want to look at how the Jews preserved their Bible, how the Old Testament came into existence and was preserved and handed down from one generation to the next, because that is the beginning of where we got our Bibles from. So hopefully that's helped to answer a few of your questions. What has intrigued me and made me extremely excited about this particular study is that we look at other historical artifacts that back up what our Bible tells us. We may not have the entire Bible in a first edition copy, but we have other artifacts that back up facts that the Bible talks about. And so I believe the Bible can be very, very well documented as a historical document. If you'll open your songbooks, turn to the song that's been selected. I have decided to follow Jesus. What's your decision today? Today I face you with a decision, as we face every day. Who are we going to follow? If it's not Jesus, what are we following and why? If there's anyone here with any needs, let us know how